the Bankless guys are wrong. And I'm going to tell you exactly why I feel that way. And this is based off of their most recent video that they just uploaded earlier this morning. It's about the Ethereum roadmap wars and why they still think Ethereum is #1 and will continue to stay that way. I'm going to tell you exactly why that's not the case. And I've got plenty of content on this, an article as well as a previous video or two that I will share. And I've got plenty of other professionals backing me up with this. And I'm going to lay it out point by point why I believe this to be the case and why they're wrong, because I just watched the video this morning and I'm going to go point by point as to why they are not only wrong, but misleading the entire Web3 space. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So starting off the bat, they talk about narrative and how price drives narrative, which is true. That is definitely the case. Price does drive narrative, but I'll argue that price does not reflect value. And if you just look at the way the current market is set up right now, there is no way some of these tokens deserve to be at the market cap they are at. We're talking about, I think, 12 meme coins alone in the top 100. Meme coins are great and all. Whether you love them or not, I don't really care. That's fine. But do we honestly think that some meme coins should be valued above real, useful protocols that are actually earning money and being used every single day? Well, I guess that's up to you to decide. I certainly don't. So price does not determine value. Narrative, sure. And that was one of their opening points. Then they went into the 3 talking points that you always see that come up with the Ethereum FUD, which I guess are around parasitic L2s, also fragmentation, and I guess lack of North Star, which that hasn't really even been much to my notice lately. And they were trying to determine the order in which they believe these are really creating this FUD. And Dave responded saying that he believes that fragmentation is #1, and then parasitic L2s, and then lack of North Star. That I would agree with. I think that is probably the driving factor behind a lot of the Ethereum FUD. But they also tried to mention how price really affects it. And while I can agree to an extent, I'll say for me personally, price has no impact on my content whatsoever. And I could even show many pieces of content and critiques or praises for various protocols when they're at all-time high or all-time low. So whether or not Ethereum is at all-time high or Solana is, it has no impact on if I'm going to critique it or not. If I feel something is wrong, I'm going to say so. Anyone who follows me knows that's the case. So again, it doesn't matter if Ethereum's at $800 or $5,000. There are issues, and I'm willing to put the information out there for people to see. So let's take that off the table right now. Sure, it does drive the narrative for some people, but not for a lot of others. Now, I do want to add too that on top of those 3 pieces that they believe play into the FUD, I think they're missing the most important one, and that is the technical aspect. And this is really not a debatable factor. Ethereum is far inferior to many other alt L1s at this point, and this is provably true. Obviously, price doesn't reflect it, but again, we're in Web3, and if you haven't figured out yet that a lot of stuff is completely manipulated, well, you're not really paying attention because the markets are entirely manipulated. One thing I like to toss out to people is, if Ethereum was launched today, do you think it would be a top 10 token, a top 20, top 50, top 100? I can tell you right now, if it was launched today, or even in the past 2 years, along the likes of Sui, Aptos, and some of the others that launched, Ethereum wouldn't even be in the top 200. That is because it is lacking in technical abilities and efficiency that people are just not willing to discuss. I can talk about this in another video as well. Some people like to say that it has already won the game, and EVM is going to be the dominant virtual machine, and Solidity has already won. To that, I say that's just absolutely ridiculous. Right now, we have roughly 26,000 developers in all of Web3. There are Web2 companies that have 3 times that amount of developers alone. There's over 25 million developers in the Web2 space. So if you think that Web3 has seen a winner or is even close to seeing a winner, you are completely fooling yourself. So think again. We are still in the early dial-up days of the internet in comparison. Stop believing the graphs that you might see that show that there's 50 million, 100 million, 200 million daily active users, because that's BS. We don't have anywhere near that amount of users. Most of it is just bot automated accounts, airdrop farmers, or whatever it may be, people that have dozens of wallets. I have over 25 wallets currently active. I've tested over 50 different wallets. Sam Blackshear actually said it the best. He said there's been roughly 60 million downloads of Web3 wallets, yet we somehow have 5 to 10x the amount of daily active or monthly active users. Yeah, no, keep dreaming. That's not true. So we have to take those numbers into account. Now, I've laid out some of the technical issues and technical concerns in plenty of content and videos. One is around their ERC token, which is entirely flawed, and I have a lot of content around this. But if you've been hacked or known anyone that has been hacked in the Ethereum ecosystem, well, the reason why is likely because of the token, and it happens every single day to the tune of over $1 to $2 million on average, sometimes a lot more than that. And that is all while we have almost zero adoption. Just imagine when we do have actually 100 million daily active users or 1 billion daily active users. We're going to be looking at billion-dollar hacks and more. And this is something that even Edney, the co-founder of Sui, mentioned, that we are on the precipice of seeing the first billion-dollar hack. And that is because of the weak security in Web3. And that cannot continue. And Ethereum is one of the leading causes for this. I have another video on this that you can check out if you're interested in knowing why, but it is primarily due to the ERC token. So another thing that gets me is how a lot of people like to compare price with value. So let's take an example. Would you honestly compare Doge value with Link value, or the price movement of Doge versus Link, and say it's a good comparison? I sure hope not, because I think anyone with half a brain knows that Link provides 100x, 1000x more value in the space than Doge does. Yet Doge is worth more and has higher volume and is more known. How crazy is that? That is where we are at in Web3 right now, a completely illogical and early phase of Web3. We will get past it at some point. I don't know when that's going to be, but it will happen for sure, when the true value and utility will shine. This is why I believe Ethereum will definitely, without question, be dethroned before 2030 as the leading layer 1 protocol for some of the stuff I laid out already, as well as more. If you disagree with the whole value argument, then I'm guessing you probably agree then that BTC is far more valuable than ETH. If you don't, then you have no ground to stand on. And I know a lot of these Ethereum ecosystem members believe that Ethereum is far more valuable than BTC, which you may have a strong case for. But you can't argue one against the other and still use that argument. It makes zero sense. So please, can we take price off the table when we're having these discussions? Now, another point that was made is around strong DeFi, and how strong DeFi must be fast and cheap, which I agree with. That is true. But it also needs to be able to do so without sacrificing decentralization. Now, the fact that anyone can even consider the Ethereum ecosystem to accomplish that blows my mind, because every single layer 2 is completely centralized and can steal all your money right now. It looks to be going even further down this rabbit hole. Look at Mega ETH, for example. It is proposing a super high-end hardware setup in order to pump out 100,000 plus transactions. But we're talking about a super centralized setup in order to accomplish that. So I don't even know how they can bring up the discussion of strong DeFi with cheap and fast transactions alongside decentralization, because decentralization in the entire Ethereum ecosystem is a pipe dream right now. And it will continue to be that way, because shared sequencers is, again, a pipe dream. If you don't understand why, there's a great talk by Justin Bonds that I'll share down in the comments that explains exactly why shared sequencers are not going to happen. It's a trust me bro approach at this point. Then another thing that's brought up in the video is how some people want to ditch solo staking, which I am very, very against this. The idea and ethos of crypto was to have a widely distributed and decentralized network. And honestly, I think that Ethereum maxis of 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago would be disgusted by the way that current Ethereum community members are looking at things and discussing things, because decentralization used to be the one core principle that the Ethereum community really pushed and stood behind. Now they're having discussions along the lines of, well, are 100 nodes good enough? Or can we get away with semi-centralized sequencers and L2s? If your bags were not involved, you would realize how ridiculous this is. And this is the way Ethereum is going. And this is why Ethereum is lost, 100% lost. And you have the Ethereum ecosystem that is completely split due to some of these reasons. You have L2s that are parasitic to the L1, earning lots and lots of money that have no chance of actually becoming decentralized because they're earning so much money. Part of the reason why these shared sequencers won't work that Justin points out, Base, for example, I believe it earned $40 million for the L2 in Q1 of this year. Base is part of Coinbase, a for-profit company with shareholders. Are they honestly going to choose to go a route of shared sequencers where they could possibly lose this? Zero chance of that happening, which is why a lot of these will not decentralize truly. And even if they do move to some type of protocol that allows them to still keep their MEV and fees, you're still looking at a very centralized system, or something that's not very censorship resistant, which is again something that the Ethereum community always stood for before and now seems to care less about at times, because they're making all these sacrifices and trying to talk around it. If you would hear yourself 4 years ago the way you're talking now, you would be truly disgusted. And a lot of the community outside of the Ethereum ecosystem understands this. And if you don't believe me, how about taking someone else like Sam Blackshear, the CTO of Sui, for example, who states a lot of what I say as well around the ERC token being flawed and how Ethereum is lost. This is not just me saying this. Yeah, I'm a nobody. No one knows who I am at this point. That's fine. But I can show you dozens of quotes from some of the brightest minds in the field that are saying the same thing that I am. And the Ethereum community does not want to recognize it. Now, I wouldn't have all these issues and concerns if it wasn't possible to have a super scalable and decentralized system, but it is. And it's being done already. It's already in action. I truly believe that sometimes the Ethereum ecosystem and the community doesn't realize what is being built outside of their own ecosystem. But there are protocols that are light years ahead of what Ethereum has right now, as well as what they're even planning on building. I think it's time for them to really open up their eyes and realize that stuff like MEV has been solved elsewhere. And all these protocols and PBS, ABS, everything else that are trying to solve it, and still failing by the way, are just wasted time, energy, and money for an ecosystem that is going to continue to lose dominance and share. But again, this is why I am so passionate about sharing this message, because these issues have been solved elsewhere, but the Ethereum community and the space in general is ignoring a lot of them because of their bags. And Adam Bates actually said it really well recently, that cryptocurrency is arguably the worst thing to ever happen to blockchain, and I 100% agree with him. You take out the monetary incentives and we would be decades ahead at this point with blockchain adoption. But because of the fact that so many people have heavy bags and are pushing various things that may not actually be what's best for Web3, here we are, stuck in a place that's not really progressing. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, sometimes even 2 or 3 steps back. So I really would love if the Ethereum ecosystem would open their eyes and see that these issues have been solved elsewhere, and it's not just an issue of not being tested. We're talking about provable solutions to many of these issues. And one of the last points they made is around the Ethereum roadmap, which yes, it does have a strong roadmap, and they're looking to scale the L1, which is great. But again, is it not too little too late? We're talking about improvements that still won't even put it up to par with current L1s right now. And in the year, 2 years, 5 years, or whatever it might take to implement those, where do you think those other L1s are gonna be? They're gonna be 5 years ahead. They're building for 2020, while the rest of the ecosystem is light years ahead. Not only that, like I mentioned previously, the community is split. We've got the base rollup model, we've got the typical L2 parasitic roadmap model, we've got some that want to go with shared sequencers, you've got Unichain coming out that's trying to unify all of the DeFi, which again is going to be completely parasitic to Ethereum. Now I get it's not going to take all DeFi instantly, but you don't think it's going to slowly continue to accumulate DeFi if it takes off, which it probably will, since there's what I believe 12 Uniswaps right now across 12 different L2s. Yeah, that's an issue. One that might be solved by having a singular L2 to handle it all, but that's going to impact Ethereum. And if you don't want to acknowledge that, then you're just burying your head in the sand, just like many of you are doing with a lot of this other stuff. So that's my response to the Bankless recent video. I'll go ahead and link that down below as well. But like I said, I've done videos on this and content on it. Ethereum is lost. The community is split. They don't know which direction to go. You've got different incentives that do not line up, and protocols that are taking directions that don't help others, and they're going to be battling out for fees and revenue. L2s will consistently improve, which is going to take more and more value away from Ethereum, and it's going to be a continual cycle. I'm happy to talk about any of this at any time on a space, a video, whatever it may be, but I think people will begin to realize that Ethereum is truly lost with no good direction. It's backed into a corner and has no solid path out at this point.